Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Workday Financial Tips and Tricks. Chelsea and I will introduce ourselves here in a moment. But real quick, I wanted to get started with some housekeeping items. Today's slides, we have add that to the chat. So if you would like to follow along, you can go ahead and click on that Nevada box link to get access to those slides. But if you don't follow along, that's okay. We're going to email out the slides to everyone. And also the session is being recorded. So we will add both the link to the slides and the recording to the knowledge base. So then you can always come back as a refresher, or if any of your colleagues missed today's training and you want to forward that to them, that will be available in the knowledge base later, hopefully by the end of this week, so you can forward that on to them. Feel free to ask questions along the way. Don't be shy. You don't have to wait till the end. We'll have some stopping points as we go. This should be a very brief training. It's pretty straightforward. Chelsea and I just want to give you some reminders and some tips and tricks as we're ending the fiscal year and beginning a new one here. But feel free to ask questions or even stay on at the end, because we'll probably have time within the hour to be able to demo anything or go over anything for you. Even if you have a certain item or an exception that you want to go over, feel free to stay on and ask us some questions. This is the time to do it. Before we get started, we'll do some introductions. I am Desi Tellman, and I'll put my camera on just for a brief moment. I don't like to do it all the time because I distract myself, but I'm Desi Tellman. I'm the business analyst in BCN Purchasing, and I'm also joined by Chelsea.
Yes, hi, my name is Chelsea Stuffelbeam, and I'm the accounting services manager. So I oversee the travel, the P cards, and the PO invoices and settlement runs on campus.
Chelsea does it all. But we're both here today to help you out with any of those financial tips and tricks along the way that we've learned that's been helpful for us and also for others as they have navigated through the end of the fiscal year and beginning fiscal year from there. I am going to go ahead and put a question in the chat. So while I get started with the agenda, tell me, how are you feeling about the year end or even beginning a new fiscal year? Maybe this is your first one. Let us know if this is your first year end and you're learning all the tips and tricks you can. Let us know. Give us a sad face or a happy face, whatever kind of works for you in the chat, or a funny GIF of how your year end is going. Ooh, I see some first ones. I love seeing some first years in there. Awesome. Hopefully today will really help you out. Upside down, yes. Wow, we have a lot of first year enders. I love this. Well, we have a lot of pros on the call too. We've had people that have been here for a while, so you all don't be shy and share with us too if any tips and tricks have helped you along the way as you're navigating. 12th, but learning something new every time. Isn't that true, Barbara? I think Chelsea and I both still learn stuff new along the way, all the time. Especially with Workday evolving, things change all the time. Go ahead, Chelsea. Did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I said yes, agreed, every day lately.
Every day. We're always learning something. I don't think we're ever pros. We try to be. Well, thank you. And it's great to see a lot of first year enders here. First and new at the job. Yeah. That's right, Ello. We'll get you through it. Well, thank you all for sharing for that. So today is pretty straightforward, as I mentioned. We're going to go over just some fiscal year end resources, just making sure, especially all for you, if your first year end, you make sure you know where the memos are at, you understand the deadlines, you know where to find all those resources. I'm also going to talk about viewing more processes. This goes for all financials or even HR items. This is a really helpful report to run in Workday. And so I'll go over how that can help you, especially towards the end of the year. Chelsea's going to take over and talk of everything AP as she lists off. She has everything from procurement card, travel, and everything under the sun under AP. I will talk a little bit. We just had our requisitions training. Hopefully you were able to join that. But if not, we have that recording available in the knowledge base. But I'm going to just touch on a few of those FY26 requisition reminders. So we make sure that everyone is doing those properly, but also give you some tips and tricks on the way as you're entering those new FY26 requisitions. We're also going to talk about tracking those procure to pay items. So how are you tracking your year-end ones right now? How are you knowing which open PO POs you still have open to make sure that you close. How are you making sure you know what requisitions have been issued, which ones you're waiting on, and how you can find all of those. And throughout, we'll talk about different resources, but at the end, we'll kind of compile all those resources for you as you're going forward, even if it doesn't have to deal with year end, to help you along your way, especially as you're learning all of these new things at your first year end. So we're going to first just briefly talk about some fiscal year end resources. In the chat, how many of you have gone out and looked at the memos, you received the email, you looked at knowledge base, you're understanding what the deadlines are, put a happy face, sad face, upside down face, but how many of you have accessed those resources, or maybe you're like, what are you talking about, Desi? Go ahead and put that in the chat just so I can see where everyone's at with these first year end resources. I see some smiley faces coming up. That's good. I'm glad not to see a lot of sad faces or angry faces. So a few little eeks. So just in case you weren't aware, so an email goes out. Yeah, what are you talking about? So an email goes out at the end of every fiscal year. It always comes out the beginning of April, and we make sure that we compile everything from AP, cashiers, to purchasing of all the year-end closing so that you understand what your deadlines are, when you need to make sure things are in. Chelsea's going to go over those important deadlines, especially when it comes to procurement and AP items. And I'll go over a few when it comes to purchasing. But make sure that you are accessing this in the knowledge base. And I'm going to go out there here in a moment. Just a reminder, our fiscal year end closes on 6/30/2025 for FY25, and the last day to post any FY25 transactions is the end of business day of 7/22/2025. So mark those in your calendars, have your spreadsheet, whatever works for you, just so you remember those deadlines. You want to make sure that all those transactions are processed and all the approvers, so it's not, oh, I'm waiting on these approvers. I'm making sure that it is in the controller's inboxes, Workday inboxes by the deadlines noted. So make sure you plan ahead and plan accordingly. So real quick, I'm going to go out. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, not that one. Okay, so just in case, make sure you're logged into the knowledge base. You can search it through unr.edu. Make sure you're not Googling these articles. Make sure you're actually logged into the knowledge base. And you're going to go into this category. You don't even have to look for and search for anything. Just go straight into this category, fiscal year in new fiscal year. In here is a good amount of articles in here. And what we did is this fiscal year end closing, this is the memo that you were emailed. And then you also got a purchasing one and a blanket purchase order one. Those are all in this category. In this article, you can download it. So in case you lost it in your email and you want to see it, and it's also available in most of all the articles. What we've done is also broke down everything that's in that memo. So we broke it down to each subject. So that way, if you're more concerned about grants, you're more concerned about cashier items, you're more concerned about purchase orders, you can go and find that information in these different articles from there. If you want to, I'm subscribed to it, but I always tell people to make sure you subscribe to items. So this will go away probably about end of July, beginning of August. We archive the entire category except for certain items. They'll live in those appropriate categories like purchasing or travel. But other than that, that will go away. But for right now, why we're doing the end of fiscal year, go ahead and subscribe to this category. When you hit subscribe, anytime any of us knowledge base admins make an update to this area, you'll be notified via email that there's been an update or a new article added. So that's a great way to make sure that you're staying up to date on anything that's new in the knowledge base. But here is the full breakdown and everything you need to know. Don't mind these extra little buttons and things I have here. I'm a knowledge base admin, but these are shortcuts that come from a different category that we make sure that are duplicated in here so you have access to those. So make sure to favorite any of these or subscribe to them so then you know where to find any of those items. All right. Here's just a compiled list of some of those items that are in the memo. So you'll see all the different deadlines. So you can keep that little screenshot for yourself. Maybe you have your own spreadsheet of all the different deadlines that you need. That's a great way to keep track of all those different deadlines you need to make sure that you are not missing. But make sure you read through all of these and see all the different deadlines and when they're done. So make sure on some of them you have, like cashiers, you have till 3 p.m. So it's not end of day. So just make sure you're double checking all the details of each of those deadlines and you know when you need to make sure those are in. And we'll go into more details in our certain areas. But before I pass on to Chelsea, I wanted to talk about business processes and making sure that you are tracking business processes. As we always say, Workday is not as magical as we would all like it to be, and it doesn't just magically tell you when things have been actually approved and processed, and you actually have to go through and track for you. So hopefully you are checking those business processes. There's a few different ways to do it. So as you are initiating things and you're looking through and you want to make sure what's been completed, or you want to go back to a requisition or procurement card verification, you can also access it through archive. There are certain reports you can run, and we'll touch on those if there are any certain reports that you should run to try to find that quicker, but archive is usually your go-to. And I'll talk about in the tracking part of actually searching in archive and then also using your My Tasks, so your inbox, and having these saved searches so you can track down things a little bit easier as they're coming in and out of your inbox. You can also use favorites. That's always my favorite. I always push that all the time. And so make sure to use that so you can track everything in one spot. But the one thing I'm going to go over right now is View More Processes. View More Process is a Workday generated report that you typically would use if you need to see anything outside of the 90 days of your archive. So it's been older, you want to make sure it's really closed, you can go through and you view more processes. But I always suggest for people to use View More Processes throughout the year, especially towards the end of the year. View More Processes, you just type in View More Processes or add it to your shortcuts, and you could be able to run this report. You can decide on the date range, so you can go all the way back to the beginning of the fiscal year if you want. You can just say since January, or maybe you just want to do for this month. You can also do the end date of 6/30/2025 and making sure that you don't have to worry about anything that is going to be for the next fiscal year. You can do those date ranges from there. Once you run this report, it's going to give you a report of all the different business processes in there. You can see what's been canceled, what's in progress, what's rescinded, and what's successfully completed. Of course, what we want to track is those in progress items. So that way we know, do we need to reach out to others and start saying, hey, I don't think you got this done properly, or hey, approver, why don't you have this done yet? So what I'm going to do, I always love this bar, loves to get in my way. Hopefully, yay, it didn't reset. I'm always my friend Aubrey, so I'm going to proxy as her. But just to show you real quick how to do View More Processes. So she already has it in there, but I'll just type it out anyways. So you can start typing out View More Processes, and of course I messed up there. Oh. Okay, so View More Process Report. This is where that date range is going to populate. I'm not going to go back too far because just in case she has a lot of items, we don't want to be able to have to wait forever. So I'm just going to do March. If I don't put an end date, it's just going to automatically be able to show everything, or it end at today's date. You can end at today's date. You can put 6/30/2025 if you want to. So we'll just do that and you'll hit OK. And what's nice about this is it's going to give you a snapshot. So this will give you everything a snapshot, and you can change the order. You can go by business process. You can, we'll show you about status. You can hit these columns. That way you can see what has been successfully completed, what is in progress, and what's happening. This gives you a snapshot of all your different processes, just not one certain area that you're working on. So HR, financials, those will all be in there, especially on the items that you have initiated. So in here, let's look to see what's in progress. So as you can see, you can go through and say, okay, 29 of my 457 items are in progress. Now I can go through and check to see which of these are. Maybe you're like, oh, did something actually get done? You can actually hover over the link here. You can right click and see a new tab. So now when I go and see a new tab, I don't lose my access to my report. See a new tab is your best friend. And then you can go through and say, okay, let me go to the process. I'm going to go through and let's see where it's awaiting action. Okay, this is what happened. It was send back lines, and this is who it's awaiting action with. So that way you know, do I need to reach out to somebody? Where is it at? Okay, it's with AP. Then there's nothing else I need to do, or I'll just keep track of it. So this is a great way to see those in progress items and be able to make sure that they are where they need to be, or if they are delayed, you know who to reach out to. Any questions on that before I pass it on to Chelsea? Hopefully that's a helpful little tip, and definitely use those view more processes. I'm going to pass it on to you, Chelsea.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm going to go over just some things that I think will be really helpful for you guys during the year-end process. So here's some year-end tips and tricks on credit card processing, supplier invoices, and expense reports. So year-end tips for the PCV transaction. So that's the first deadline in my group that comes up. So the biggest thing is make sure that you have the correct documentation attached, because right now you guys are super busy. Our numbers are going really high right now. So it may take us a week or 2 to 3 weeks to review it at this point right now. So if you have any questions on, do I have the right thing, please call anyone on my team or call me, email us to make sure it's correct when you start to process it. Stay on top of the verifications in Workday. Try to get them in as soon as possible so then they could go through the approval process on time. A reminder that in the memo section, you need to put the business purpose, not what you purchased. We already know what you purchased. We could see the receipt, but say the why did you purchase this and what it's for. And then another big thing on the PCVs is June 1st, which is going to come up here before we know it in 1 month. If you're using state funds on a PCV transaction with the transaction dated June 1st and forward, you need to have approval from the vice president or designated representative. So what that means is the associated vice president in your area, or it's the provost, would have to sign off on these charges in Workday. So normally departments, they'll get a memo from them delegating down to like their dean level or their AVP level, and then they could even delegate further. But every transaction that you do has to have those delegation memos attached, and those people have to have approved them before they come to us. If they don't, then my team will have to send them back to get that additional approval. Does anyone have any questions on that? Because it's a little unique, because it's only for credit cards. Well, let me know later. I can't really see the chat from here. So let me know if anyone has questions. Okay, so next fiscal year purchases. So say you're purchasing something today for something that's going to be an FY26. So that's a lot of times like airfare or conference fees or something that you're going to do later, but you want to get a discount now, so you need to buy it now. But those are not going to be charged till the next fiscal year. So what you'll do is when you verify the PCV transaction, you're going to add this DC code. It's DC041. It's called prepaid expenses, and they are on every single work tag except for grant work tags. Grant work tags, you could just do it as you normally process transactions. But if it's not on a grant work tag, you're going to use this DC code, and then in the memo, you're going to enter in what FY26 work tag you want to use and the spend category. And then if you want a DC code or an activity code, you would put that in the memo. And then about like August, September, the controllers area, usually Cody Harris will reach out and say, and just kind of confirm with you guys to make sure that you want it posted there. And then he'll get that transaction booked to your account. Okay, so and the PCV deadlines is the first one that's coming up in my area. It's due in our AP inbox by Thursday, June 26th, by the end of the business day. So that means that if you submit the verification, has to go through your manager and the work tag manager, it's the cardholder's manager and the work tag manager. If they don't approve it by then you will lose out, and you will not get to use state funds if you are planning to do that. If it's a self-supporting work tag, it's not as important because you could just submit it for the next fiscal year. But if you're using state funds, it's very important that you meet the deadline, or you will not be able to use your state funds. And then we will have like a couple days to review them all. And then on July 1st, everything will be processed in FY26. So if you don't make something in time and it still has a transaction date of June 30th or earlier, you will have to use a self-supporting work tag. You cannot use a state fund to pay for something from the prior year. So supplier invoice request. So that's when you do a create supplier invoice in Workday. So that's the deadline to submit those to us is on a Sunday, July 20th at the end of the business day. So hopefully you're not having to work on a Sunday. So try to get them in on Friday before you leave. And so for those, and I'll go into Workday and kind of show you guys, but make sure that you backdate. It's called, the invoice receive date. You backdate it to 6/30 or earlier. So then we know it's for FY25. And you can always put a note that says that, because a lot of times the invoice date will be later because they do the services in June, but they don't bill you till July. And then make sure that if you're using state work tags that you actually have a balance in them, because you don't want to get it stuck in budget fail. And then expense report tips. So make sure, so expense reports are very tricky, as we know. So just make sure that you have the correct documentation, or please ask before you do it. Stay on top of this because they're time consuming on all parts to review plus process. As we've been pushing a lot, use your P card as much as possible. But if somebody does have to purchase something or they're traveling and they use their personal credit card, then you'll have to do the expense report. So make sure that the date that you enter the expense report in is the fiscal year, because starting July 1, we'll be working in 2 fiscal years, right? FY25 and FY26. So it's the expense reports, it's driven by the expense report date, and I'll show you in Workday how you do that. So make sure you're booking in the year in which the travel occurred. But if you are planning on using state funds, you need to make sure the expense reports are in our office by Sunday, July 20th for any travel that happened by June 30th. So you get a couple weeks to get that process in. Okay, so I'm going to go in to Workday and show you guys a couple things. So if you're doing the create supplier invoice request, so if you're in this task, what you're going to want to do is this section right here, the invoice receive date. Make sure you put 6/30/2025 or the date that you received the product or the services were completed in June, or whatever it is after July. And then in the invoice date, you'll put the actual invoice date, whatever you get. So this way it kind of tells my team, because they're going to have to do an override on the back end. So it kind of helps them out to know that it's a 6/30, especially if you get an invoice that doesn't show anything about it being done in June. We really need that information. Also, when you're creating the receipt, I'm going to go into, you could do a create receipt a couple ways. You could type in the PO number, or you could go create receipt and then type in the PO number. I like to do it this way. And so when you're going into the create receipt, you have to do a couple extra steps to change the date. So you'd have to go into info and then down here to edit, and then the receipt date, you'd want to change it to June. And then you would click save, and this would lock it in. And if you miss this step, we could do it on the back end, but sometimes it will cause like a fiscal year mismatch. So make sure that you change this date so there's no issues later on. And then my team, if they're catching this, they'll probably send it back to you because now we can send receipts back to fix that. But you don't want to get anything delayed or not be able to process it. So make sure you backdate it to the right period. Also remember that you cannot pay, you have to remember what, we don't roll POs till after it closes. So ensure that the PO is open that you're working with. And if it's a PO that's on like a self-supporting work tag that is gonna roll, you can't pay an FY26 invoice until after they roll, which will be the end of July. So if you send one over, we're gonna have to unfortunately cancel the receipt because it can't be done yet until the PO has rolled. It'll cause a problem if there's like an open receipt. And then the last one I wanted to do is show you the create expense report to show you which date I'm talking about. So it's that expense report date right here. So just be careful after July 1. Make sure you backdate it if it is for FY25. But if it is actually for FY26, then of course, leave it at today's date that you're entering it in. Okay, so let me see. I think that is all for my area right now. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? I think we're good, Desi.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll bring back up my screen now. Share screen. All right. Good to go, Chelsea, before I start talking?
Yes, yeah, I think.
Okay, perfect.
And then people
Just wanna
can
make
ask
sure.
questions later. I hope I didn't talk too fast, so just feel free to ask a question anytime. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, as Chelsea said, we'll be on for a little bit. This next section won't take as long, so we're here to answer any of your questions as we can or demo anything else that you need. So I am going to go on into some purchasing items. So hopefully, like I mentioned at the beginning, you're able to attend the entering requisitions for the new fiscal year. But if not, we have that training available on the knowledge base. But just some helpful tips as you're entering for the next year, because we're in 2 fiscal years. It's a lot to juggle while you're trying to finish this fiscal year while entering the new ones. So just some reminders that we shared before, and then these are also located in the memo. Of course, FY26 requisitions can be entered in Workday. We encourage all departments to start entering their FY26 requisitions in advance, just because of the timely transactions. Just as Chelsea said, all of our offices right now are our transactions are getting up to those very high marks. And so when we're trying to close out FY25, we don't want to have you wait till July 1st. So if you're new to your department, maybe that's how they did it before, but we're encouraging all departments not to wait till July 1st, especially if you do have any blanket purchase orders or purchase orders that need to be issued in July or even early August. Get them in now. It's important to get those in so that way we can make sure that we are processing them timely, because as they come in, that's the order that we are going to process them in. So make sure you're not waiting till July 1st and only worrying about this fiscal year. You want to make sure you're getting those in. So for FY26 blanket purchase orders and POs, like I said, that need to be in July and issued, you want to make sure they're received to our office in BCM Purchasing no later than May 23rd. So mark that on your calendar. Make sure that you're getting notified beforehand, and you want to make sure that those are going to be processed in time. So make sure you're getting them in. We're not saying that we won't process them if they're in at that time, but that's just a deadline, that knowing how heavy each of our buyers' inboxes are and all the transactions they need to process. Some, require insurance and making sure they have a business license in Nevada and so forth. We need to make sure that we have enough time to process all those and go through those. So make sure you're getting those all completed and don't wait till the last minute on that, because I already mentioned that we will, as they are sourced and entered, we're going to be able to do those in accordance depending on what those timelines and policies are, and we'll follow those in accordance. So just some FY26 requisition tips. And oops, I forgot to change the title of that. Don't mind that. But that FY26 requisition tips, we want to make sure that you're entering the correct dates and you're making sure you're indicating that this is for FY26. Because as I mentioned, we're in 2 fiscal years. As you're going through, sometimes it's not as obvious to the buyers if this is an FY25 or FY26. So it just really helps to make sure that you're indicating those. So just a few tips. Again, don't wait until July 1st to enter those FY26 requisitions. Make sure you're going out to the knowledge base. I've linked those on the slide so you know how to create an FY26 requisition for goods or services, and then also how you do an FY26 requisition blanket purchase orders. So for your blanket purchase order renewals, when you're processing those, you want to make sure that you're indicating what that renewal number was. Which one is the one that you had? That's always helpful so the buyer can grab that quickly. Making sure you're indicating that this is an FY26 blanket purchase order. But if you're wondering, especially if you're new to your department, what items do we usually do as a blanket purchase order? You can go ahead and run the find purchase order line details and use the UNR one. And it's going to give you all the information that you need. It'll even have the description, so it'll have any of those details in there. That way you can start making your own spreadsheets of what are the ones that we commonly do, what are the ones that I should be doing. Spreadsheets really help. You can't just rely everything on Workday. If you have your own separate spreadsheet, you know each year which ones are my blanket purchase orders, which ones are the ones that need to be issued in July or August. I need to make sure I'm getting those done now. So that way you have a priority list of which ones to be done. When initiating those FY26 requisitions, make sure that you're changing that request date to 7/1/2025. Once you submit that, that is a date that the buyer cannot change. So we will be sending those back to you if we catch them. Also, as we're manually issuing purchase orders for this fiscal year, we are trying to catch those too to make sure they are not a July 1st one, especially a blanket purchase order. In that internal memo, make sure that you're stating that it's an FY26 requisition or it's FY26 blanket purchase order renewal. And if possible, it would be great if you can put that blanket purchase order, what that requisition or purchase order number was. So that way we can refer back to that to make sure there was no changes. Everything's pretty straightforward. And then also make sure that you are associating any of those backup documentation that is needed for your blanket purchase orders. So if this is your first time doing all of these FY26 requisitions, we have step-by-step processes out in the knowledge base. So make sure you're referring to those. Sometimes when I only do things, once or twice a year, it's best to go back out and make sure nothing's changed, nothing's updated, and follow those step-by-steps. We also have a memo that went out with the purchase order deadlines. We also have the FY26 blanket purchase order. It goes over all the information I just went over and a little bit more detail as you're entering those. And then if you want to, you can go out and watch the recording of the entering requisitions for the new year. And that also has a demo in there so you understand, especially for the blanket purchase orders, how to make sure to process those, what to enter, and what backup documentation to make sure that you are putting in with those blanket purchase orders. So I talked a little bit about tracking in the beginning of the session, about going to view more processes, making sure you're tracking where the business process is. Well, also on the purchasing side, sometimes besides your archives, it's not as easy to track what has been issued and what hasn't. So as you're closing out this fiscal year, and then of course you're going to begin to enter ones for FY26, when you're looking at the FY25s, you're going to want to make sure what is been issued, what is still waiting approval, what's in progress, and then also what are my open POs. So I'm going to go through a few different ways that you can make sure you're tracking all your different requisitions, so that way you can keep track of those. Majority of those are that I'm about to show you, besides running reports or asking for an open PO report. Most of these are going to be anything that you initiate. So if you're a fiscal officer for your entire unit, cost center, or your department, you won't be able to see everyone's that initiated through this requisition worklet. So just want to give you a heads up on that. But this requisition worklet can be very helpful. So I always ask this question, and some of you were at the training and already answered this, but go ahead in the chat while I'm talking about the requisition worklet. How many of you use this? How many knew about it? How many didn't know about it? Give me a smile face, a sad face. I have no idea what you're talking about. So that way I can see where everyone's at. Oh, I love when I'm already seeing yeses and smiley faces. Oh, yay, that's great. I use it. I didn't know existed. Sad face. Okay. I love seeing all the different emojis come up. Okay, so we got a good mixture here. So just in case you haven't been using this, the requisition worklet, and I can go out in a moment and show you, but the requisition worklet is one that you have to download, so it's not automatically in your general navigation menu. There is one that's called My Requisitions. It gives you pretty similar information, but requisitions is the one that you want to make sure you have in your app list. So you just want to go ahead. I have the link here. So in case you want to know how to add or remove applications and you're new to the general navigation menu, there is a step-by-step guide in the knowledge base. But you're just going to make sure you're adding requisitions applications so that way you can go to this and be able to view. What's going to do is it's going to give you a compiled report of anything that you initiated. So all your requisitions, any that are open, and then any that are completed. Through the open, it's going to show you all the ones that you have open. It's going to let you know who it's awaiting action by. And then usually if you click on the waiting action by, you can also, what's new is they actually switch this to just awaiting action. You can click on it and you can see the full business process. So it takes you directly to that business process, and then you can see who is it awaiting action. It gives you a little time frame here. Is it ordered? Is it received? And is it invoicing? And you can click on any of these too to be able to see where it's at. Another thing that's great is that you get a snapshot. So you have the requisition number. You can hover over the three dot, so that related action icon. You could be able to also see a new tab if you need to. That way you can go to it and find out a little bit more about it. You can also get a snapshot here. You can see what the total amount is, and if there's multiple items, you can click on that and it'll actually show you all the different lines and the information that is there. So this will give you a snapshot of where it's at, what's going on. Same thing with completed, you'll see what's been issued. You can also find the details on the PO, and you can go to those POs if needed, so you can go and see that. In the edit filters, all is it doing is it is taking you out to edit any filtering that you want. So maybe you want to look at just a certain work tag, you want to look at just a certain date, you want to look at something that's maybe you only want open items, you don't even want completed items. You can change those through the edit filters, but typically the default is just what you need, so that way you get both open and completed from there. Again, you're going to see anything that you initiated, not what others have initiated through your department. Those would have to be run through reports. But at least this gives you a snapshot of where things are at and what's completed from there. Enchi has a great job aid, and they also did a video on more of this requisition if you want to learn more about it. But this is a very helpful way to do this. I'm going to go through and let me see if it's kicked me out yet. Oh, hopefully not. Don't kick me out. Okay, that's good. It didn't kick me out. Let's see. Oh, good. She has it. So here, this is where that general navigation menu is. If you do not see requisitions in there, all you're going to do is go to add apps and start typing in requisitions. Again, there's one called My Requisitions, but you're just going to add this requisitions one. The same report that is there, you can also type in the search bar. You can type in My Requisitions. Another thing that you can do real quick before I go into there, let's just say you just want to find your purchase orders. If you just click on Find Purchase Orders, let's say you're on the simplified search. I have this off because this whole AI thing keeps bringing up old things for me. But for some, it works if you're doing a lot of items. The Workday AI will actually show you a snapshot of all the ones that are in progress right now. So if you have this simplified search enabled, once you just type in find purchase orders, it will bring up your requisitions, and then you can go straight to that requisitions dashboard, which I'm about to show you right now. So that is another way that you can go ahead and view those. So let's go there. And then the other one is by going to, you can type in my requisitions, and then it will actually bring you up to this report. That this is the same one as the edit filters. This is the report that you can run that is generated to this requisitions worklet from there. So we have the lovely instructions that you always need to see. But again, if you want to see what's open, you can see what's approved. Okay, that's been ordered. You can also go ahead and view it. You can view the counting of it, which is really nice. You can also get a snapshot of what has been ordered, what each line was. So then you can understand what that purchase order was for. If you need to remember, like this one has 14 items, you can go through and see which one has been ordered, what has been requested from there. And then also you can do the completed items. Again, you can see that this has been closed and completed. And if you need to, you can go ahead and view the item and then be able to get to the PO. You can also view the accounting. Let's just go out there real quick to see. And then that way you can instantly get out to that recounting. So if you want to go ahead and see what has been paid, what's the balance on this PO, and that way you can quickly get out to that requisition from there. Let me go back here. I have a question. Can my requisition be used for the unit regardless of who created the rec? Well, unfortunately, I think from under the requisitions, it only will do who created it. So be able to track. Typically, you would have to go and just run the reports to be able to see through the unit. You should be able to go to the find purchase orders, or since you're the cost center manager, most likely, Barbara, you can go through and run find purchase orders and actually do it for all of University of Nevada, Reno, and then do work tags, unit, cost center, whatever works for you, and then you can get a snapshot of everything there. That'll probably be a little bit better than this will only show you what you initiated or who created the requisitions. Yeah. I wish it was that way. It would be nice if this was a full dashboard and we can put all of them in there, because that would be nice to have everything in one spot. But yeah, so this gives you an idea of how to be able to track those items. And then since I'm already here, we'll go to, let's see, oh, I don't have it in here. So the one that I list earlier on is you have find purchase order line details. Of course, it doesn't want to come up with the UNR one yet. So the difference is, so if you want to run like find purchase orders, that one is a Workday generated report. And usually the security on that is the cost center analyst or the cost center manager. Most of you may have that, but some of you may only have the financial administrative assistant role. And so you may not be able to access some of those reports since it's only cost center manager or cost center analyst. So this find purchase order line details, you should be able to run that one. So then that way you can break it down, let's say, and it will only give you access to your area, of course, but I'm just going to type in enrollment services. That way I can look at that full cost center. And then you can actually go through and you can change the dates if you want to. You can also go by purchase order status. So when you're running these reports, sometimes it's good just to see what's in progress. And if you get no results, you're like, yay, I got nothing in progress. I'm doing good. Everything's ordered. You can also look at anything that was issued. So maybe you do want to look back, as I was stating before, and I want to see what blanket purchase orders I did before, what items I did before. So then I make sure that I redo those this year. You can actually do issued, you can do approved. So you can do any of these that are needed, but typically you might only just need those. And then you can also break it down by work tag. So if you have a full unit, but you want to break it down by certain work tags, you can be able to do so. And then as you run that, hopefully it doesn't take forever. So this also includes issued, but you can go here to see what's in progress. Oh, I have nothing in progress. So that's a good sign that there's nothing I'm waiting on. But you can look at all these purchase orders. It gives you the full amount. It shows you what you ordered. It also gives you the invoicing information. So this also gives you a snapshot of all that information if needed. So that way you can see what supplier invoice, what it looked like, what was the breakdown. So this is a report that you can run to be able to see all of those. Any other questions so far? All right. So last couple items, I'm going to go over this really quickly. I'm not going to go through each detail. These are more for reference slides for you. But hopefully, as you're using your My Tasks, you have been using the advanced search. So under the advanced search, you can be able to save your searches. A lot of people don't do this. I don't have time, or I don't do filters, but it can help you during this time when you have FY25 and FY26 and you're toggling between both fiscal years. So we do have information in the knowledge base of how to run these advanced searches. But when you're in your My Tasks, and don't mind some of the old dates, I'm going to be updating some of these, but you can do some save searches. So you can be like, I only want to see requisitions that are from the last fiscal year, and I'm going to put an effective date, and I'm going to put the end date of 6/30/2025. So that way, when you actually click on this search, it's going to find anything with requisition, and then it's going to have anything that is before that 6/30/2025. So that way you're not getting anything for the next fiscal year, and you can just concentrate on those from there. So these show you what the end dates are and what start dates are for the fiscal years, and some examples of what you can run. And again, it's not just for purchasing. You can run this for expense reports. You can run this for your P card procurement verifications. You can put these parameters in if you don't have time to set up filters from there. If you have time to set up filters, I highly recommend it. Maybe starting the next fiscal year when you have a little moment and a little breathing time, you can go ahead and put those in. Some people really use filters. They're very helpful. There are some that are already set, like your favorites. You can just hit the toggle star. Some people use that as items, like I don't need to concentrate on those. So they'll star all their FY26 items so they can concentrate on their FY25. Or you can use it to star any of your FY25 items. And then once you hit favorites, it'll only show you those items that you actually toggled the star on with. You can go with the overdue, but sometimes that can vary because those due dates are just the business process due dates in there. So you may not get exactly what you want from there. Or you can set up some filters. So these are just some suggested filters. Again, I'm not going to go through every detail, but they're here for your reference. So in case you were trying to set up, you can set up some filters within your My Tasks. So that way you can easily be able to look, especially through date range or effective date. So once you set up filters, you can set them up to be effective dates. So maybe I just want to look at everything that is before 6/30. You can do this same thing as I just showed you in the advanced search, but this will filter through everything. So this could be for all business processes. So as you're doing procurement verifications, the travel, all the purchasing items, you can do all business processes. Again, don't mind the screenshot. It has an old date, but you would put 6/30/2025. That will be anything that is before that. So you can concentrate on that when you hit that filter. That filter will stay there as long as you're in your My Tasks, so you can just only concentrate on those. You can also do it by a certain business process. Maybe you want to do the requisition events, or you want to do your expense report or your procurement card or anything financial. You can type those different business processes in to be able to concentrate only on those items. If you don't want to concentrate on maybe some of your HR items, you can separate those out. You can also do, I want to make sure I want to look at anything that is July 1st and on for the next fiscal year. So then I can start concentrating on that. Or That way you can be like, oh, let me go take a look to see I'm making sure I'm processing everything for the next fiscal year. You can be able to go ahead and process that to see what's coming into your inbox on what to approve, especially if you are a HR finance coordinator and you're supposed to do approvals. This will also help you, so then you can separate out the two from there. So quick crash course on filters, but feel free to always reach out to me. I love setting up filters. So if you want to know how to set up filters, I'm always happy to walk through that with you and set those up for you. Open purchase orders. So we are concentrating on getting our FY26 in. We're making sure our procurement card verifications are going through, our travel expenses, everything is being processed for this fiscal year, but we also don't want to forget about our open purchase orders. So if you are a cost center manager or even a cost center analyst, you should be able to run the open purchase order lines and be able to see your open purchase orders, especially if you want to make sure of those state funded ones. Of course, we want to make sure those are getting closed. So typically what happens in Workday, Workday will close any of those that completely get paid out, right? Zero balance, everything was invoiced, that's completely paid out. But you may have some, even if it doesn't have any remaining balance on there, it may have not been closed properly, or it was a change order and something didn't happen, or you have $100 still left on there. You want to make sure you're closing all those purchase orders. So you can be able to run that report. If you can't run that report, you can reach out to me and I can go by work tag, I can go by cost center, and I can go by unit. So I can pull that report for you. And what I do is I share a worksheet in Workday for you. So you can have access to that and you can also share it with anybody that you need to in your department and be able to say, here's our open POs. We need to make sure we're closing these, and you can highlight it, color it, whatever filtering you need to do in there, but it'll be worksheets through Workday, and I'll share that with you. Also, before you're closing any of your purchase orders, it's really important that you're confirming that all supplier invoices have been paid. So before you ask that buyer to close that PO, they are making sure to check that too, but it's making sure to do your due diligence that you can look at that. I'll double check that that link has been active now. So we just made some edits to that find supplier invoices. So that way you can see what ones are open or not fully paid yet, and you can find supplier invoices. So I'll double check that that one is active and let you guys all know when I send a recap email. But when that BCN one should be able to help you to double check real quick to see if any supplier invoices are not done. So we have a question in there. If a PO ended up costing less after it was ordered, it happens a lot, leaving the PO open, how do you deal with leftover funds that can no longer be used so that it can be closed from there? So there, usually we go through, and any of the ones that are open that cannot roll forward, our office deals with those. So like any of those state fund ones, unfortunately, those funds are just done. So if it's state funded, we go through and we try to close all those. We don't catch all those all the time. So that's why we want to make sure that you're also helping us with closing those POs. But if it is something that you don't want to roll forward, and it is not state funded, then you can be able to go ahead and have those funds back into your account. But I think that's what you meant. But yeah, if it's state funded, that's why it'd be good to check now to see if there's any that you can close to be able to use that funding before you can't use those state funds anymore. But any that are left there and you close now, if it is an account that can be, the money can come back to you, then that is possible. But a lot of times, if not, those things are just gone. Wish we could just use them again. Wouldn't that be magical? I wish we could roll forward with those. But thanks for asking that question. But yeah, make sure you're checking your open POs, and please reach out to me if you want to open PO report, and I'll be happy to share that with you. Just make sure you indicate what your cost center unit or work tags are that you want to have shared with you. Or reach out to your fiscal officer in your area, and they can be able to run that report for you. Or if you're a fiscal officer, run those reports so then everyone can make sure that they're doing that. And you can also add them in a worksheet also. If you need help with that, feel free to ask me and I'll be happy to show you. So some Workday resources we shared throughout. We have the knowledge base. We've shared a lot of links throughout the slides there. So make sure you are subscribing and favorite those certain articles that you're looking at, especially the fiscal year end ones. Team dynamic service requests, especially if you're like, I'm supposed to have that role. I don't have that financial administrative assistant role. That's where you go out and do those certain security roles, or if you're having any workday issues, make sure you put in a ticket for that. UNR Bridge, especially if you're brand new to your position, especially on the financial side, if you have those financial administrative assistant roles, you want to take Workday 101 and go through those financial certificate programs. They're very helpful so that you can understand all procurement and then travel and expenses. And then network meetings, especially right now, we share a lot of year-end items, so make sure you're attending those. That's the first Thursday of every month. Guess what's happening tomorrow? Network. Reach out to Kaya Massey in Human Resources if you want to be added to that list. There's always great updates to that, and we'll be sharing a lot of year-end items tomorrow at that network meeting. And then always look out for different trainings that are happening. Chelsea and I might do another one of these again as we're closing out the fiscal year. But always check out the UNR training calendar. And then these are our contacts for accounts payable, BC and purchasing. And then if you have any questions on training, you can reach out to Workday Learning at unr.edu. But thank you so much for attending today. And thank you, Chelsea, for the great, wonderful tips and tricks on the AP side. And hopefully you all have a very successful end of fiscal year and beginning fiscal year, and that we'll all get through it together. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll stay on for a few moments if you have any questions or anything to go over, but thank you so much.